You know, I really thought I could make it my whole life without having a restraining order filed against me, but here we are. Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. I hope you guys are watching at youtube.com/OutKick. Now, look, if you've been following me on social media, maybe you saw where I was recently appointed to the Sumner County Library Board. That's what this podcast episode is about. How this appointment came about, why I'm excited about this, and of course, the drama that has ensued since. I filmed this episode about 2 weeks ago, prior to the first meeting. But naturally, there are some updates following that first meeting. So I figured I would come into the intro, explain a little bit about what I've been facing on the back end, then give you guys some of the context. A woman that I have never met, never seen, never even heard of, filed a temporary restraining order and a lawsuit against the county commission that appointed me and the other new library board member a few weeks ago, arguing that our appointment violated the Tennessee Open Meetings Act. But you and I both know that's not really why she sued. Similarly to my appointment, items have been brought from the floor to be discussed or voted on or amended more times than I can even count. The woman who filed this lawsuit is picking and choosing which things deserve procedural scrutiny based on her own personal taste. And what's the draw-in of having myself on the library board? It's highlighting the pornographic books that are in our county library and getting them out of there. It appears to me that this woman and a lot of liberals in Sumner County and across the nation are desperate, will go as far as to sue the county commission to put suggestive, sexually explicit material in front of children. I respect and truthfully I admire every civilian who is willing to get involved in local politics, including the woman who sued the county, but I just wish she would come out and be upfront about why she is choosing to scrutinize the county now. We'll get into all of that and more in today's episode of Gains for Girls. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gains for Girls podcast. You are looking at the newest appointed Sumner County Library Board member. That's right, me, Riley Gaines, freshly appointed to the Sumner County here in Tennessee Library Board. Look, I've worn a lot of different hats. I've had a lot of different titles over the past three and a half-ish years. I've worked for lots of nonprofits and organizations. I'm the host of this podcast. I wrote and published a national best-selling book. I did not think, it was not on my 2025 bingo card, that I, at 25 years old, I had a baby 4 weeks ago, that I, right now at this current stage of life, would be owning and really so proud of the title Library Board member, especially here in my community. Look, where I live now is where I grew up. The school system that I was a part of is the school system that I want our daughter Margot to be able to enjoy and thrive in. So very, very excited for this opportunity, for this appointment. There's really nothing more fruitful than giving back to your community in this way, especially when the stakes are so high. I think that has been made very evident over the past few years, especially in library settings, educational settings. These books, these materials that are being placed in front of the most vulnerable, the most impressionable young children, right? So lots at stake here. And again, having a daughter just makes those stakes all the more high. I will say, I had no idea that the library board was as contentious as it has proven itself to be. And it's really not just the library board, right? If you listening to this are involved in any sort of capacity, especially in local politics, forget national or what's happening at the federal level. If you are involved in local politics, I'm sure you know how contentious these positions and these appointments can be, right? It's not just the library board. It's school board, it's commissioners, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have to tell you guys this, but I had no idea that my small conservative county here in Tennessee, the red state, the conservative state of Tennessee, where we have a Republican supermajority in both the House and the Senate. We have a Republican governor. We're a pretty well-governed state, right? At least that's what people who are flocking here from California would like to think. People who call themselves political refugees. I had no idea that we were dealing with here in my county, just a little north of Nashville, what some of those people who fled from California were dealing with back in the very, very blue state governed by Gavin Newsom. We're dealing with that here in my county, Sumner County in Tennessee. But it's not because we're run or have been infiltrated by Democrats, or at least people who have a D by their name at the ballot box. No, that's not the case. These are people who have an R by their name, of course, indicating Republican. But what I have learned to be true is that R by their name at the ballot box certainly does not represent Republican values. We have so many RINOs in these positions. RINOs, of course, stands for Republican in name only. It's very strategic. They know what they have to do to get elected. Again, here in a conservative part of Tennessee, they know what they have to campaign on. They know the values by which they have to stand by: faith, family, and freedom. Yet when they fill those positions, it's antithetical to those values. The policies that they're voting on and that they support, it's in total alignment with the Democratic Party. And this isn't just the case in my red state of Tennessee. Look at states like Oklahoma, Texas, Florida. This is happening all over. And I think largely because people like myself, and look, I say this honestly and with full transparency, we become complacent in a way. We think that we're immune to the woke craziness. That's not happening here, not in my county. You would be wrong to assume that you or that anyone is immune to the woke ideology that has plagued this nation. Now, let me tell you, I wasn't just made aware of what's happening in our local libraries this past week. I'm going to take you back to March of 2023. This is when I had the veil lifted from my eyes of what was happening in my community. If you're listening to this podcast, then you probably know who Kirk Cameron is, likely because his values align with my values. Again, if you're listening to this, then our values probably align. If you're anything like my mom, you know who Kirk Cameron is because you had a poster of him in your childhood bedroom. He was like the 80s and 90s heartthrob, probably for his role in Growing Pains, but I digress. Kirk Cameron is affiliated with Brave Books. We've talked about Brave Books on this platform before. It is a fantastic children's book subscription service. So this means that once a month, you get a children's book delivered to your house written by a different conservative or Christian figure or influencer, if you will. I actually have a book with Brave Books. My book is called Happy No Snakes Day, and it teaches the value of standing firm in the truth despite the consequences. And that's what Brave Books does. They tell these wholesome stories that engage kids, but they teach important virtues like patience or humility or the sanctity of life. It's everything that Scholastic claims to be, but as you could probably imagine, Scholastic has totally fallen into all of the wokeness and they're pushing the agendas on your kids. Brave Books is the antithesis to that. Back in 2023, Kirk Cameron was doing this nationwide story hour for children where he would read Brave Books to a group full of kids in public libraries, again, all across the country. Kirk Cameron's nationwide tour was in direct response to the drag queen story hours that we were seeing happen all across the country that were marketed to and targeting young children. Because he was coming to my town, Hendersonville, Tennessee, he reached out to myself and Missy Robertson of Duck Dynasty to participate in this story hour with him, which, of course, I was so excited, number one, to be standing alongside two of my favorites, but also to be doing so in my own community. I was shocked when I saw the pushback that Kirk Cameron and Brave Books were receiving for attempting to host the story hour at the Hendersonville Public Library from the public library staff and their library director. Through email exchange, the library director made it very clear that he wasn't really cool with Kirk Cameron being there, his message being told. You know how it goes. He says, look, we don't want to promote right-leaning or left-leaning values. He said, look, we can't host this event here. There's too many people from the community who want to be there. And I will tell you, he actually was right about that. There were so many people who wanted to attend this story hour. The library director ultimately told Kirk Cameron that he would have to cancel his appearance and host it at a church nearby. But because the community was so engaged and they put so much pressure on the library, they ended up opening their doors and allowing the story hour to be hosted at the public library. So flash forward to the event. It is a Saturday morning. It is pouring down rain outside, but there were so many people from the community, I mean hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, lined up outside the library in an attempt to get inside and get a front row seat to listen to Kirk Cameron read his book. Myself, Kirk, and Missy Robertson were inside the library. We were attempting to film some promotional and marketing content for Brave Books before we opened the doors to allow all of the community members into the library. Brave Books team set up a camera, they had lights, they had a backdrop, and we were just trying to film a few 30-second ads for Brave Books. But wouldn't you know, the library staff that was already inside the building and sat behind the library desk was being overtly loud and obnoxious, ultimately hindering the content that we were trying to film. Their audio was being picked up by our microphones. No big deal, right? We approach the library staff and we say, hey, any chance we could get 60 seconds of quiet? We really need to film this content and then we're out of your hair. We'll go into the room where the story hour is being held. You don't have to hear from us again. They had a speaker back there, like a Bluetooth speaker. They turned it on and they began playing music from their iPhone, singing very loud. Like it was very blatant what they were trying to do, which again was to disrupt what we were there to do, the message that we were there to spread. Missy Robertson approaches at this point and she says, look, is there any chance you could turn the music off? We just need 30 seconds. To which they say, we're just looking for ways to deal with our stress. Missy says, stress? What stress? We're just sat here with the camera, not really even bothering you at all. They turn the speaker off for just a second. I get back in front of the camera, hoping to knock it out, be done. I start to talk into the camera. The librarians behind the desk begin screaming, laughing so loudly. They pick up a book and drop it on the floor, stomping their feet. Blatantly disrespectful. And I've never been very good at mincing my words. I've got a video of it. Watch it here.
It doesn't have to be stressful.
Step back and just roll into it as soon as you're ready.
Okay. To succeed. I found that most competitors are too scared to speak out against. Okay, this is just immature, and it's honestly extremely disrespectful.
That is.
Like, you guys are old enough to know that that is, like, extremely disrespectful.
Yes.
Like, to slam your feet or books or whatever on the ground, that's pretty ridiculous. We have 60 more seconds, and that's all that we ask of you guys. And it would be made quicker if we weren't slamming books and stomping our feet.
I'm with you.
How sad is it when the 22-year-old has to be the one to tell a bunch of grown adults who are at their job working to be mature, to be respectful, that their actions were totally ridiculous? You can hear the one woman who was totally on board with everything that I was saying. She also recognized how insanely disrespectful the rest of the library staff was being. You can hear her saying, yeah, I agree with you. This is crazy. Got a quote from Brave Books here. They said, the library staff treated us terribly, unfortunately. And then I have a quote from Missy Robertson. She said, not only were they rude to us, they were super rude to their entire community that lived there in Hendersonville, Tennessee, because that is a public library and they could have invited all those people who were standing in the rain to come in and form lines inside the library, down the aisles, sit on the ground. Robertson said, we weren't even reading in the library part. We were down the hall in a conference room. They wouldn't let them in. They made them stand outside in the freezing cold with their children in the rain. Total rudeness to me. And that's a good point. But this broke my heart. Again, as a Hendersonville native, as someone who takes so much pride in their community and where they grew up and where they are from, this is my home. And to see people that I know, people that I love, teachers in the district, again, parents that I know, young kids that I coached in swimming, to see them treated in this way, it broke my heart. This behavior that we saw from the library staff was not indicative at all of the community that I know and love. Not an accurate representation. If you're watching online at youtube.com/OutKick, which I hope you are, I'm going to insert some pictures of what the event ended up looking like, how many kids showed up to be there to listen to these stories. It was really incredible. Look at this. You can see Kirk. He's standing there in front of, hundreds of kids. And there's more on the other side. It was really awesome. But again, I share this experience to really, I guess, explain what lit a match under me. What this did is it exposed, again, to someone who would describe themselves as relatively naive. I want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. It exposed the nefarious stranglehold that the progressive liberal hypersexualized culture had, I think, especially on our libraries, as well as how the RINOs were not willing to confront it. And they actively participated with the progressive liberals to specifically vilify, defame, attack, and destroy people who have values like me. I still feel confident in saying that I come from a pretty conservative town, because when the community heard about the treatment that Kirk Cameron and myself and Missy Robertson and the kids and families who were there to attend the event were met with, they were furious. And this had gone national at this point. Fox News did many articles on it. I'll insert one of the articles they did here. My community was very frustrated. So what did they do? They went to Facebook again. Facebook is like where everything goes down, I've realized. They went to Facebook to express their frustrations about the library board, and specifically the Hendersonville Public Library director. Parents were attending these library board meetings. The pressure stayed on so much so that the library director ended up losing his job. And wouldn't you know, he was one of those California implants. But again, that was 2023. Fast forward to 2025. What really caught my eye in the past few weeks. As you guys know, it's been 7 weeks since the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. One of the brightest, most persuasive, most faithful minds of our time. My county and the school system chose to institute October 14th, which of course is Charlie Kirk's birthday, as Charlie Kirk Day. This didn't mean a whole lot for the students necessarily, but just a day to honor Charlie Kirk, the life that he lived, again, how prematurely and tragically his life was taken from him, and I think most importantly, the methods of which he communicated with other people. So the county commissioners voted on this. And I was drawn to this topic, again, on Facebook, because I saw one of the commissioners who voted yes initially, expressing on Facebook how ultimately he regretted his vote. Now, this Facebook post wasn't just about how he regretted his vote for Charlie Kirk Day, it was also about how he wanted to change Christmas break in the county school system to winter break. Let me read you some of his posts. He says, one personal note. After many conversations and research, I will be asking to change Christmas break back to winter break. The reality is that while most call it Christmas break, we have other holidays and families to think about. By making this change last year, we did not serve all of our families and students. Now, this seems like such a mundane, nonsensical thing, right? Who would really be outraged? Winter break, Christmas break, they're interchangeable, right? No, this is not done without purpose. If you've learned anything over these past few years, it's that the left, or in this case, these woke RINOs, attempt to move the goalposts as much as they can. It's done slowly, but it's done purposefully. We live in a Christian nation founded on Christian principles. The days of being ashamed of our culture and traditions and our faith and our morality and our ethics are over. How many good people of good will are harmed by the words Christmas break? Zero. So this discourse on Facebook and the votes that were happening caught my attention last week. So I began to look more deeply into what was going on in my county and in my area. And that's when I found the library books. You know the ones. They're the pornographic ones. I mean, let's call it what it is. These are pornographic books that are being put in front of and made easily accessible to children. They contain nudity, they contain expletives, they contain graphic photos and visuals, they contain confusing ideology meant to sway young kids from believing that God created them intentionally and uniquely in his perfect image, by purpose and with purpose. I've inserted a couple pictures of the books that we have found in the libraries in my county. So what did I do? I went to X to talk about this, as I do. And this post I put on X stirred up a lot of conversation in my town. Parents were made aware of something that they had no idea was going on. They were made aware of votes they had no idea were happening. And they were made aware of RINOs who were filling these library board positions. Again, in full transparency, I wasn't someone who necessarily kept up with every move and every meeting that my library board in my county was having. After posting this on X and having conversations with people who were aware of what was going on locally, I found out that there are currently 9 positions on the library board. One of those seats has been empty for several months. The commission and the committee on committees refused to fill this seat. So that means there were only 8 people on this library board. Of these 8, there were 4 who were conservative and 4 who were non-conservative. Again, these non-conservatives were technically Republicans or people who have an R by their name. But again, in this case, they're total RINOs, or people, at least as it pertains to this policy and putting these books in these libraries, people who were just totally unconcerned with the transgender ideology and how it's harming children. I found out that they have not met, this library board hadn't met since February of 2025, meaning they hadn't met for 8 months, because if they were to show up to a meeting, then they would be forced to vote either for or against a policy that removes these books from the children's section following both state and federal law. Again, they don't want to go on record voting no, that's for sure. It would ruin their reputation. So what do? This is why they're always absent from the meetings. They were waiting until the chairman, or the chairwoman, whose name is Joanna Daniels, who has been awesome, by the way. They were waiting for her term to be up this November. They wanted to reduce the number of board members to 7, which would ultimately give the non-conservative members the majority, making this policy go away, never to be voted on. Again, very, very strategic, isn't it? It was Commissioner Shannon Bergdorf, who's also on the library board, who brought the resolution to decrease the size of the board, which again would give the majority to the progressives and eliminate the policy to protect children from this poisonous transgender ideology. It was a personal attack. Shannon Bergdorf's decision against the library board chairwoman, Joanna Daniels, who created this policy to remove these books. Again, she has been stonewalled, total stalemate since February of this year. So what these libraries are doing, actually, they're directly in conflict with both state and federal law. So they had a meeting last Monday, and because of the discourse on X, the books in the library, keeping the board at 9, and the new appointments were the big agenda items for this meeting. And as you could probably imagine, a large number of the community showed up. Many pastors too, which I find to be incredible. The community members stayed until after midnight to hear the votes. This ended up being a 4-hour fight that went on until nearly 1 a.m. At the end of this 4-hour fight is when they decided on who the newly appointed library board members would be. I was nominated and then I was voted in. But again, there were several with R's by their name who voted against my appointment. 2 were brave enough to stay a no vote until it showed up on the big screen, removing any sort of animosity. But there were several who voted against me, but ultimately switched their vote at the end to attempt to stay undercover. Again, very strategic. They know what they have to do to continue to be elected. And before we get into the response that we have seen following this appointment, I just want to make it very, very clear. I think this needs to be emphasized. People like Shannon Bergdorf, again, a Republican, who is on the library board, bringing forward resolutions at the county commission that affect the library board, should be viewed as a total conflict of interest. Commissioner Bergdorf, what she did is disrespect members of the library board because she never brought this resolution that would have directly affected the number of library board members before the library board to get their opinion on whether or not they feel as if the board should be reduced to 7. This was personal. It was personal against the current, or I guess at this point, the former chairwoman, Joanna Daniels. Also, her voting as a commissioner on anything that has anything to do with the library board business is a total conflict of interest. As I said earlier in the episode, I had no idea that the library board position was as contentious or controversial or sought after as it's proven itself to be. I've gone out to eat several times over the past week or so, and people have stopped me, like probably close to 15, 20 people have stopped me and said, "Congratulations on your appointment to being on the library board." All the while I've got our baby's car seat in the other hand. They're not telling me congratulations on becoming a mother. No, it's congratulations on the library board appointment. But not everyone was excited about my appointment. Let me read you this email that was sent by Megan Breenig, who is a county commissioner, to the rest of the county commissioners. The subject line is "Reckless Library Board Appointment." It says, "Dear Commissioners, I am deeply disappointed in your decision to move forward with this appointment without apparent consideration for the damage it will cause to our community and to the reputation of our public institutions. It is clear that this body did not think through the consequences of appointing a public figure like Riley Gaines to the library board, or the impact it will have on the board's ability to function effectively. The library board's work depends on collaboration, neutrality, and focus on community service. Instead, you've introduced a political lightning rod whose presence will inevitably shift attention away from the library's mission and toward controversy and division." I kind of like being called a political lightning rod. Recent weeks have already shown how little gets accomplished when attention seekers are given leadership roles. You surely remember the chaos and hostility that erupted the last time Miss Gaines involved herself in the library system. Her visit triggered a national media circus, the unfair firing of a good man, and even bomb threats against the Hendersonville Library. That was a dark and ugly time in this county, one we should be learning from, not repeating. Ms. Gaines has repeatedly demonstrated that she uses her platform on X as a weapon. Heck yes, I do. She attacks members of our community with no regard for the truth or for the safety of those she targets. Funny she mentions the word truth here, because I would be willing to bet this woman believes that men can become women. She goes on to say, "Appointing someone who thrives on divisiveness to a position meant to serve all residents is both reckless and beneath the position of leadership that you hold. hold. Did any of you even confirm that Miss Gaines currently resides in Sumner County? I never heard this question last night. Or was this decision made without due diligence and without any effort to seek input from the public you are meant to represent? During that discussion, I did not hear any qualifications presented that relate to the actual responsibilities of a library board member. I don't know what the qualifications necessarily are, but I can guarantee you that I possess them. This appointment was thoughtless and politically motivated, not community-minded. You have handed a powerful position to someone who has already harmed our county's image and put residents at risk. The citizens of Sumner County deserve better than this. Well, let me clear one thing up. She says, did anyone even confirm that Miss Gaines lives in Sumner County? Yes, I live in Sumner County. I'm very proud to live in Sumner County. That email that I just read, let me remind you, that was written and sent by a woman who claims to be a Republican. Remember how I was just telling you they wanted to change Christmas break back to winter break for the county and the school systems? Well, Megan was, of course, one of the ones who voted in favor of this change. Listen to her comments here.
As a person of faith, I think it is really important for us to recognize that when a public school puts the word Christmas break on our calendar, we actually take something that is spiritual and sacred and we make it secular. That's why we're legally allowed to do it, because it makes it secular. At the same time, I have many neighbors who do not celebrate Christmas, including Christians who choose not to celebrate Christmas for its pagan roots. There's history there that Christians choose not to celebrate, or they choose to celebrate in September. When we use that word, it can make those families feel invisible or unseen in the very schools that their children attend. And I want us to challenge artists doing that for the children. In John 13:35, Jesus said, "Everyone will know you as my disciples if you love one another." And I want to challenge each of us. At the end of the day, what matters is that we love each other well. I will love you well. And I'm asking you as a Christian, speaking specifically to Christians, to do that same thing. Paul talks in the Corinthians about not judging the people who are not in the faith. And so let's make sure that when we're having these conversations, it is not our job to dictate to our whole community what a 2-week period should be called from a faith-based standpoint. Choosing to consider winter break over Christmas break is not about erasing faith. It's not about taking Jesus out of the season. In fact, I would challenge you to say that it's the opposite.
Who needs Democrats when you have Republicans like Megan? Now let's read some of the Facebook comments. If you are bored, if you're in need of entertainment, if you're on maternity leave, go to Facebook and read the comments. Under virtually any post, it doesn't even matter what the post is about. Political, apolitical, does not matter. Go read the Facebook comments, because this is where the keyboard warriors come out to play. I mean, it is filled with boomers who have nothing better to do with their life than comment on people's Facebook posts. So let's just read a few of these. Some of my favorites. This person says, she had to be appointed because if she ran for that spot, she'd finish 5th. Haha. The chick who tied for 5th, mind you, like 5th place, Riley Gaines. Again, this is hilarious to me because this is coming from people who have probably never played a sport in their entire life. Never mind at the national level. Okay, so I guess that's an attempt to make jokes of my athleticism or my athletic career. This person says she'll ban books. This guy says, I bet she can list the books that she's read on one hand. No, sorry, Joe Smotherman. That's literally his name. Actually, I'm still learning my ABCs. This person says, with no experience at library administration, right? Does she even know what a library even is? It's not a coffee shop princess. 2nd place fill-in, better than her former 5th place career best, I guess. Well, if that ain't a DEI hire if I've ever seen one. This person says, maybe there needs to be a rule where to qualify for library board that you actually have to have a master's in library science, or at least meddle without blaming your life's problems on people different from you. I guess I gotta make time to go to a library board meeting. Please, Serena, please come to a library board meeting because you will find me there, which I'm assuming is your intention, to come and protest or picket or whatever you want to do. Please, I beg you to participate and be involved in your community. I hope that's a promise, not a threat. This person says, what a joke. This person says, thought they were against DEI hires. This one says, the definition of a DEI hire. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. What qualifies me to fit that bill? I'm assuming they're saying it because I'm a woman. Well, let me tell you, I would fit that bill if I was solely appointed to that library board because I was a woman, which is not the case. I happen to be a woman, but I wasn't appointed to the board because I am a woman. That's the difference. Are they calling Shannon Bergdorf a DEI hire? Are they calling Megan, the girl I just clipped, the videos that I inserted, are they calling her a DEI hire? No. Only me. Only when it fits the narrative. These dunces can't help but show their misogyny and really their contempt, their disdain for women, especially conservative women. Those are a few of the negative, but let me tell you, the positive outweighs the negative tenfold. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of supportive comments from parents and people in the community. This one says, "This is one small step in taking the world back from the grasp of evil. I stand with Riley, and anyone else should do the same if they want their children's eyes protected from the evils this world has produced." This person said, "Glad to see that moral values of faith, family, and freedom were upheld last night. 50% of our students from grades 3 to 8 are below reading standards. It's time to stand up and speak for the rights of our families and American values." This person says, "Megan does not represent the Republican Party whatsoever, nor a decent human being. Thankfully, this is being exposed. Riley is a true patriot, a true parent," which is still like the most amazing thing to hear, "God-fearing and protective of children." This person says, "Go, Riley, go. Continue to make your hometown and county proud for standing up for our children and their rights in this crazy world that is trying to take it away from them. Great choice. She will work hard for Sumner County. Yes, I will." This person says, "On Fox all the time. Love her. What a mature, intelligent young woman who will make a difference." This guy says, "I live in Sumner County. My son is a junior in high school here. Thank you, Riley. Very happy news. Good for Sumner County families." This person says, "Thank you so much for common sense service to our community, Riley." This person says, "Such an inspiration. Proud of Riley and excited to see how God will use her in mighty ways." Honestly, all of the positive comments make me kind of tearful to see so much support and encouragement and people who care about the truth, who care about common sense and Christian values, who care about their kids and the world that their kids will inherit, which is exactly why I accepted this appointment. I'm now a mom. I have a young daughter. I want the world that she grows up in to be better than the world that I grew up in. I think that's a pretty standard way of thinking for a parent. I don't think that's anything that sets me apart necessarily, but what might set me apart is being willing to do something about it rather than just complain about it. We need more doers. We need more activists. I proudly consider myself an activist. I was hesitant to call myself an activist at first, a couple of years back, because when I picture an activist, I picture someone who has blue hair, a nose ring, and is screeching at the top of their lungs. And that's a problem, that's the picture that comes into my mind. The other side has activists. We need more. And when I say side, I don't say that in a partisan manner. I'm pretty explicitly referring to those with common sense and those without common sense. We need more common sense activists. So I'm excited. I'm excited to serve my community in this way. Public service to me is leadership through action. It's not about titles. It's not about politics or being partisan. It's about responsibility. So by me stepping into this role, I'm saying that I'm invested in our future. Public service means stepping up when something is broken and working together to fix it. And in this case, I'm not fixing it for me. I'm fixing it for my daughter. I will continue to use the skill set that I have, the qualifications that I have, the time that I have, and the platform that I have to make life better for the people around me, not just those who think me, for the people around me. I don't do what I do for credit. I don't do what I do for recognition or for accolades. No, I do what I do, regardless of what it is, because I believe it's the right thing to do. But apparently, conviction, moral conviction, is a foreign concept to some. They will call you a grifter. They will call you an attention seeker. They will say, "Oh, well, you finished 5th place in your sport." Insert the derogatory comment here. And guess what? It goes in one ear, out of the other. And why? How am I able to stand firm and strong in my belief? Because I know what I'm advocating for is the right thing, both objectively and biblically. That's what gives me the confidence and the security to keep moving forward with no signs of slowing down. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning into the Gains for Girls podcast. We will see you guys next week.